Ever notice how some people seem completely immune to what others think? They don't chase likes. They don't need compliments. They don't adjust themselves to fit in. They just exist, solid and unmoved, while everyone else desperately performs for approval. So what do they have that you don't? I am about to expose the addiction that has been running your entire life. Your need for validation isn't a personality trait. It is a psychological prison, and every single day it is making decisions for you, shaping your behavior and keeping you trapped in a version of yourself that exists only to please others. Think about your last week honestly. How many decisions did you make based on what others might think? How many times did you check to see if someone liked your post, agreed with your opinion, or approved of your choice? How much of your energy went toward managing how you appear rather than building who you actually are? Here is what Machiavelli understood 500 years ago, that modern society desperately needs to hear. The person who needs approval can always be controlled. The person who needs validation will always be weak. And the person who can't function without external praise will never, ever be free. What if I told you that your need for validation was deliberately programmed into you, that it serves everyone except you, that destroying it is the single most powerful thing you could do for your life? This isn't self-help fluff. This is the psychological surgery that separates the powerful from the pathetic. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how your validation addiction was installed and who benefits from it. You'll learn why destroying this need is the key to everything you want. And most importantly, I'll give you the exact process to eliminate this weakness forever. Are you ready to stop being everyone's approval? Seeking puppet and start being your own master. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I validate myself. Number 1. The validation installation. Let's start at the beginning. Your need for validation didn't happen by accident. It was systematically installed, usually before you were old enough to resist. Understanding how it got there is the first step to removing it. Think back to childhood. When you did something good, you got praised. When you did something bad, you got criticism or silence. Your developing brain made a simple connection. External approval equals safety and love. External disapproval equals danger and rejection. This wasn't wisdom. This was survival programming. Then school reinforced it. Grades told you your value. Teacher approval determined your status. Peer acceptance measured your worth. For over a decade, you were trained daily that external validation is how you know if you are okay. No one ever taught you to validate yourself. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so ready to obey present necessities that he who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." You were deceived into believing your worth comes from outside. You've been obeying this programming ever since, allowing yourself to be controlled by whoever holds the validation you crave. Now, social media has weaponized this programming. Every like is a hit of validation. Every comment is a dose of approval. Every follower count is a measure of your worth. The system that installed your validation need now profits from feeding it, keeping you addicted and dependent. Here is what nobody tells you. This installation serves everyone except you. Parents got compliant children. Schools got obedient students. Employers get controllable workers. Social platforms get addicted users. Your validation need is other people's control mechanism. It was never for your benefit. The first step to destroying your validation need is recognizing it was installed, not inherent. You weren't born needing approval. You were trained to need it. And anything trained can be untrained. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My worth was never theirs to give. Number 2. The cost of seeking approval. Let's talk about what your validation addiction is actually costing you. Because you've been paying a price every single day, and you've been too busy seeking approval to notice how much you've lost. First, it costs you your authenticity. When you need approval, you can't be yourself. You become whatever each situation requires. You hide opinions that might be unpopular. You suppress parts of yourself that might be rejected. You become a collection of performances, never knowing who you actually are. Second, it costs you your power. The person who controls your validation controls you. Your boss knows you need approval, so you work overtime without complaint. Your partner knows you fear rejection, so you tolerate behavior you shouldn't. Everyone who understands your need can use it against you. Machiavelli observed, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But the validation addict can never be feared. They're too busy trying to be loved. They give away all their power in exchange for the approval they desperately need. Third, it costs you your energy. The mental effort of managing everyone's perception of you is enormous. Constantly monitoring reactions, adjusting your presentation, worrying about judgment, recovering from perceived rejection. Your validation addiction consumes resources that could build your actual life. Fourth, it costs you your opportunities. How many risks have you not taken because you feared disapproval? How many authentic expressions have you suppressed? How many paths have you not explored because they might not be validated? Your need for approval keeps you in the safe zone where nothing great ever happens. Fifth, it costs you genuine connection. Ironically, seeking validation destroys real relationships. People can sense when you are performing for approval. They know the real you is hidden. The connections you make are with your mask, not your soul. You end up with many approvers but no one who actually knows you. Sixth, it costs you your peace. The validation addict is never at rest. There is always another opinion to monitor, another judgment to fear, another approval to seek. Your mind becomes a constant calculation of how you are being perceived, never settling into simple presence. Anxiety becomes your baseline state. Machiavelli observed that those who try to please everyone please no one, including themselves. Your desperate chase for validation doesn't even deliver what it promises. The approval you receive never satisfies. You need more, always more, and the hunger never ends. You've traded everything for something that can't fulfill you. Add up these costs. Honestly, your authenticity, your power, your energy, your opportunities, your genuine connections, your peace. Is the validation you receive worth everything you are paying for it? For most people, the answer is a devastating no. Drop this affirmation in the comments. The price of approval is too high. Number 3. The internal validation shift. Here is the fundamental shift that destroys validation addiction forever. You must move the source of your worth from external to internal, from what others think to what you know, from approval received to standards met. This isn't just mindset. It is complete psychological restructuring. External validation asks, do they approve? Internal validation asks, did I meet my own standards? External validation depends on others' opinions. Internal validation depends on your own assessment. External validation can be withdrawn at any moment. Internal validation is yours forever. Machiavelli wrote, "It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles." Applied here, it is not others' validation that creates your worth. It is your own standards that create your worth. The validation you give yourself based on meeting your own principles is the only validation that matters. This requires building a clear internal value system. What do you actually believe? What standards do you actually hold yourself to? What would make you proud regardless of what anyone else thinks? When you have clear answers to these questions, you have a foundation for self-validation that external opinions can't shake. The shift works like this. Before any action, instead of asking, "What will they think?" ask, "Does this align with my values?" After any action, instead of checking for external approval, check your own assessment. Did you do what you believe is right? Did you meet your own standards? That is all that matters. When you receive external criticism, run it through your internal filter. Does it align with your own assessment? If yes, useful feedback. If no, irrelevant noise. When you receive external praise, same filter. Does it match your own evaluation? If yes, confirmation. If no, flattery you don't need. This shift takes time. Your external validation programming has decades of reinforcement. But every time you choose internal assessment over external approval, you strengthen the new pattern. Eventually, others' opinions become background noise while your own judgment becomes your only true north. The beauty of internal validation is its reliability. External validation is inconsistent, dependent on others' moods, agendas, and perceptions. Internal validation is consistent because you control it. You know your values. You know your standards. You can assess yourself honestly. This consistency creates psychological stability that external validation can never provide. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am my own judge. Number 4. The Disapproval Tolerance Protocol. Here is where the rubber meets the road. Destroying your validation need requires systematically building your tolerance for disapproval. Because right now, disapproval feels like death to your nervous system. We need to teach it that disapproval is survivable and ultimately irrelevant. Your fear of disapproval is based on childhood programming where rejection meant danger. But you are not a child anymore. Disapproval can't actually hurt you. It can't take food from your plate or roof from your head. The fear is outdated software running on hardware that has long outgrown it. Machiavelli wrote, "Never was anything great achieved without danger." The danger of disapproval is the price of authenticity, achievement, and freedom. If you are not willing to risk disapproval, you are not willing to do anything meaningful. The Disapproval Tolerance Protocol makes that risk bearable. Start small. Express an unpopular opinion in a low-stakes situation. Wear something you like regardless of whether others will approve. Make a choice that is right for you even though someone might disagree. Notice that you survive. Notice that the disapproval doesn't destroy you. Gradually escalate. Say no when you mean no, even to people who expect yes. Share your real thoughts in situations where you'd normally perform agreement. Make the unpopular decision when it is the right decision. Each time, notice that you are still standing, still breathing, still okay. The goal is to reach a point where disapproval triggers no stress response, where someone's negative opinion of you is as emotionally significant as their opinion of the weather. Not because you are cold, but because you've genuinely internalized that their approval was never necessary for your worth or survival. This protocol rewires your nervous system. It teaches your body what your mind knows, that disapproval is survivable, irrelevant, and not worth organizing your life around. The more you practice, the more your validation need withers from lack of fuel. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Disapproval cannot harm me. Number 5. Building intrinsic motivation. Here is the deeper work that makes validation destruction permanent. You must replace external motivation with intrinsic motivation. Move from doing things for approval to doing things for inherent satisfaction. When you are internally driven, external validation becomes completely unnecessary. External motivation asks, will this be rewarded? Will this be praised? Will this gain approval? Intrinsic motivation asks, is this interesting to me? Does this align with my values? Does this challenge me in ways I want to be challenged? The questions are completely different, and so are the lives they create. Machiavelli wrote, "Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great." Intrinsic motivation creates genuine willingness. External motivation creates compliance that disappears when the validation disappears. Only intrinsic motivation can sustain excellence over the long term. Building intrinsic motivation requires identifying what genuinely interests you, not what impresses others. What would you do if no one ever knew? What would you create if it could never be shared? What would you master if there were no recognition? These questions reveal your intrinsic drivers. Practice doing things purely for their own sake. Read what interests you, not what makes you look smart. Create what moves you, not what will get likes. Develop skills that fascinate you, not that impress others. Each intrinsic action weakens the external validation need. The ultimate goal is a life driven entirely from within, where every action is taken because it aligns with your values and interests, not because it might earn approval, where you do what you do because you are internally compelled, not externally rewarded. This is psychological freedom in its purest form. When intrinsic motivation dominates, external validation becomes irrelevant. You might receive it, you might not. Either way, you are doing what you are doing regardless. The addiction is broken because the drug is no longer needed. Notice how this changes your relationship with achievement. The externally motivated person achieves to be praised, and without praise feels empty. The intrinsically motivated person achieves because the achievement itself satisfies. The praise might come, might not. Either way, the internal reward is already received. This makes you unstoppable because your fuel source is internal, inexhaustible, and yours alone. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am driven from within. Number 6. Eliminating validation sources. Here is the practical application that accelerates your freedom. You must audit your life for validation sources and systematically reduce your dependency on each one. Some you'll eliminate entirely, others you'll restructure. The goal is no single source having power over you. Start by listing everyone and everything you seek validation from. Parents whose approval you still chase, friends whose acceptance you perform for, colleagues whose respect you constantly monitor, social media platforms you check compulsively, the boss whose praise determines your mood. List them all. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study than war." Your war is against validation dependency. Each source on your list is a battlefield where your freedom must be won. Study each one, understand your dependency, plan your liberation. Some sources need elimination. The social media account that owns your mood. The toxic relationship that survives only because they provide validation. The habit of checking others' reactions after everything you do. Cut these completely. The withdrawal will be uncomfortable. Do it anyway. Other sources need restructuring. You can't eliminate your boss, but you can restructure your relationship to their approval. You can't eliminate family, but you can change what their opinions mean to you. The goal isn't ending all relationships, but ending your emotional dependency on their validation. The test is simple. Can you maintain your sense of worth when this source provides no validation or actively disapproves? If yes, you are free of that dependency. If no, more work needed. Apply this test to every source until you can answer yes for all of them. As you eliminate and restructure, you'll notice your overall validation need decreasing. Each dependency removed strengthens your self-reliance. Eventually, you reach a state where external validation is pleasant but unnecessary. A nice addition but not a requirement. That is freedom. Drop this affirmation in the comments. No one holds my worth. Number 7. The self-acceptance foundation. Here is the deepest layer of validation destruction. Everything we've discussed builds on a foundation of genuine self-acceptance, not self-esteem based on achievements, not confidence based on comparison. Pure acceptance of yourself as you are, without needing to prove anything to anyone. Self-acceptance isn't believing you are perfect. It is accepting your full humanity, strengths and weaknesses, virtues and flaws, without needing external validation to feel okay about it. It is saying, I am what I am without requiring anyone else to agree. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are." Most people don't even experience what they really are themselves. They're so busy managing appearances that they never rest in their actual being. Self-acceptance is experiencing what you really are and being okay with it. Building self-acceptance requires facing everything you've been hiding from others and yourself. The parts you are ashamed of, the failures you've never processed, the truths about yourself you've avoided. You must look at all of it and decide to accept yourself anyway. Not because you are perfect, because you are human. This acceptance eliminates the root cause of validation seeking. You sought external approval because you didn't approve of yourself. When you genuinely accept yourself, external approval becomes redundant. Nice if it comes, but unnecessary. Yourself. Acceptance provides everything validation was trying to give you. The practice is simple but not easy. Daily, look at yourself honestly. Acknowledge what you see without judgment. Say, out loud if needed, I accept myself as I am. This is an affirmation. It is confrontation and embrace combined. The more you practice, the deeper the acceptance goes. When self-acceptance becomes your foundation, validation addiction becomes impossible. You can't crave from others what you are already giving yourself. You can't need external approval when internal acceptance is complete. This is the deepest freedom possible. The difference between self-acceptance and self-esteem matters. Self-esteem is often conditional. You feel good about yourself when you achieve, succeed, or compare favorably. Self-acceptance is unconditional. You accept yourself as you are, regardless of achievement, success, or comparison. Self-esteem fluctuates. Self-acceptance is bedrock. This foundation makes you invincible. When you fully accept yourself, criticism loses its sting. It can't touch your core because your core is already accepted. When you fully accept yourself, failure loses its devastation. It can't define you because you've defined yourself through acceptance, not achievement. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I fully accept myself. So what happens when you destroy your need for validation forever? When you understand how it was installed, when you see what it is costing you, when you shift to internal validation, when you build disapproval tolerance, when you cultivate intrinsic motivation, when you eliminate validation sources, when you establish self-acceptance, first, you become impossible to manipulate. When you don't need validation, no one can control you with its promise or threat. Your boss can't make you betray your values with praise. Your partner can't control you with approval withdrawal. The leverage disappears when the need disappears. Second, you become fully authentic. Without needing approval, you can finally be yourself completely. Express your real opinions. Make your real choices. Show your real self. The performance ends and genuine living begins. Third, you reclaim massive energy. All the effort that went into seeking validation, managing perception, recovering from disapproval, this energy now becomes available for building your actual life. Your productivity and creativity multiply when they're not constantly drained by approval. Seeking. Fourth, your relationships transform. Without needing validation, you attract and choose people based on genuine connection rather than approval provision. Your relationships become reciprocal rather than performative, real rather than strategic. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The wise person destroys their validation need before it destroys their life. The fool realizes too late how much they sacrificed chasing approval that never truly satisfied. If you've made it this far, you are not like most people. Most people are so addicted to validation that they can't even question the need. Most people will live their entire lives performing for approval they never genuinely receive. Most people will never know the freedom of complete self-sufficiency. But you are still here, which means something in you is tired of the performance, tired of the seeking, tired of organizing your life around others' opinions. Something in you is ready to be free. Remember what we've covered, how the validation need was installed and who it serves. The massive cost of seeking approval, the shift from external to internal validation, building tolerance for disapproval, cultivating intrinsic motivation, eliminating validation sources, establishing self-acceptance as your foundation. These aren't just ideas. They're the surgical tools that remove the psychological parasite that has been feeding on you your entire life. Use them systematically. Use them relentlessly. Use them until the need is destroyed and the freedom is permanent. If this video freed you from the validation prison you've been living in, smash that like button. If you know someone still chasing approval who needs to hear this truth, share it with them. And if you want more content that destroys your weaknesses and builds your power, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. The destruction of your validation need starts with a single decision. You've just watched the blueprint. Now it is time to execute. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I need no one's approval. Remember, in a world full of people desperately performing for validation, the person who validates themselves holds all the power. Be that person, destroy the need, and watch how everything in your life transforms when you finally stop seeking permission to be yourself.